Cool. We're back for another episode, exhilarating episode, I might add, of Dark Blights podcast. With a fan of yours, a fan of mine, a fan of the show is Anthony Northrup, who is uh, now a double author of not only Dollar Babies, the book, but now Dollar Babies, the sequel, also a book. Welcome to the back of the show, Anthony.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for having me, and I'm really happy to be here again. Thanks.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. It's been exciting, and like you were just saying a bit ago, it's been 2 years since we last chatted when you just recently had the first Dollar Baby book out, and I can't believe the time flew by. But then, I kind of let her go, what the heck have I been doing with my life the last 2 years? But then I saw a picture of you holding up your Dollar Babies book, the sequel, and this thing is a chunker, and I'm like, okay, well, I know what you've been doing for the last 2 years.
Yes.
You would bigger than Empire, otherwise known as the Dollar Baby sequel.
Yeah. It's a lot actually happened before I even started the second book, actually. After we talked, the roller coaster began. I did podcast interviews, I did magazine interviews, I did in-store appearances, things like that. And then all of a sudden we did the Stephen King Rules Dollar Baby Film Festival, which was on YouTube and online streaming live through Marcus Street out of Canada. There, your neighbors to the north, uh, and so that was with Norm Coyne, Leah Coughlin, and James Douglas. James Douglas directed the Dollar Baby, the Doctor's Case. So the four of us hosted this 3-day event showing a lot Dollar Baby films online, live around the world, and then also interviewing some of the directors as well. Stephen King himself promoted that event on his what used to be called Twitter account, and he'd never done that for a festival ever. So it was a great success, a lot of fun, and that was in April of 2021. And then after that, he said, "Hey, how about doing a second book?" And I'm like, I got some material and ideas, so yeah, sign the contract. Let's do it. So I did, and then after that, I started working on the book. But then in August of 2022, the Stephen King Rules gang said, "Hey, let's do a second festival." But this time, we were invited to Davenport, Iowa, to the Alternating Currents Film Festival there in Davenport, which is a 5-day festival that has movies, stand-up comedy, live music, art, all kinds of things like that. It's a great place. I loved it. I've never been to Davenport before. I loved it there. So we all went there. We're flown in, stayed at this great 5-star hotel. Everything was comped. And we had a great time. And so that was actually on online live, but also live in person. So we actually had an audience.
Oh, that's great.
And the cool part was that $5 babies, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4 dollar babies flew in to be in that event. So I actually got to meet some of these dollar babies in person who were in the first book.
Oh,
Man,
that's so cool.
so surreal and so exciting for me because you meet people on the internet and Facebook and stuff, and you know them that way. But then when you see them in person, it's like you know.
Well, no, it's like they step into like a fantasy world now. They're real.
I was a kid in Stephen King Candyland. I was so happy and to sit down with these talented, amazing people and talk shop. Really, we
Mhm.
were talking about how did you make this scene? How did you do that special effect? What was it like on the set? Blah blah blah. And one of the really fun moments I really enjoyed was we're all sitting down to dinner at this long table, all of us, right? And here's the dollar babies. We all gather around and they got their cell phones out and they're going through their pictures on their cell phone, showing pictures on the set, of this is how I was doing this. And there's a green screen and all these stuff. It was like
Well, that's cool.
guys getting together, on a Saturday night talking shop. And I was really in the moment. I could have just, I was happier than a kid in the candy store. But
That's cool.
so that happened in August of 2022. And then after that, I just kept on working on the book, really.
Well, so that's fascinating for me that it took somebody encouraging you to say, "Hey, what about doing a second book?" Had you before that? Did you consider doing a second book, or why? What made you decide? Yeah, that is a good idea.
Well, to be truth be told, I was really, really nervous when the book came out. I didn't know if it was going to sink or swim. I didn't know if I was going to be a one hit wonder. I didn't know. I was all paranoid, you know. And
Yeah.
I saw that it was number one on Amazon for the month of January of 2021, and then it was number one at Bear Manor Media Publishing, who put the book out. It was number one there for almost 3 months. Then I started getting the feedback from people who bought it and were reading it, and I started seeing ratings and reviews online. I thought, "You know what? I think I did something good here," you know? And I felt proud of myself, and it was the publisher who came to me and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's do another one. You wanna do another one?" You know, and I thought to myself, "I've got enough material. I've got connections now, and the first one's out there. Why not?" And then, it took off. I got to work.
Now, do you have a copy of the book near you? The sequel?
They have it right here. There it is.
Awesome. Just so people can kind of get a look at this bad boy. What a gorgeous cover.
Oh,
King all that
not
is a
just
simple, bright.
not just the cover, Rick. Look at the thickness. It's like, you know how much this weighs? This is the paperback. The hardback weighs almost 4 pounds.
Jesus, it's a
It's like
work.
8 pounds right here. Look at that. Isn't that something?
That is a murder weapon.
It's 950 pages.
And what was the first one? How many? Because the first one was an exactly
I
skinny.
got that right here, by the way. There's the first book. Can you see the difference?
Oh man, yeah, it looks like that's what that book wanted to be when it grows up.
Like, there you go. This first one was where's it at? It was over 550. It was the first one, and this was
See, see, to me, that seems like a respectable size, and everything that went into the first book. I'm thinking, well, obviously, there's new movies that come out. You can talk about those things, but otherwise, what else you can talk about? So obviously, you found a lot of things to talk about or to write about. Was there any specific thing when you set out to write the sequel that you had in mind where like, I need to go after this information or I need to go after this angle or this is what I'm going to dig into more so than in the first book?
I'm glad you asked me that. First of all, when I came to the second book, I thought, okay, let's start with from scratch. Let's start with a little skeleton here. What's going to be in it? What do I want? What do I don't want? What did people like in the first one? What they didn't like? What they didn't like, I left out. What they liked, I came to more of. So I stuck with the basics first. Interviews, obviously, reviews of those movies, of course, and then have celebrity contributor guest, doing essays, and then after that, I thought, okay, that's everything in the first book, but what else am I going to put in there? Well, I had the Stephen King Rules Festival to talk about, so there's a chapter in there about that. There is Dairy Pub, other surprise people in there, and then there's a section in there where I went back to the Dollar Babies from the first book and said, "Hey, you guys want to come back for a little cameo, so to speak?" And they're like, everybody said yes, of course. So what I did was I had a section in the book where I talk about bloopers, something that happened funny on the set. There's a chapter in there about prequels and sequels. You think you see a sequel or prequel to your movie ever? Or another one was first generation Dollar Babies. Talk about them. There's a whole chapter in there of broke down subject matter. So you take all that chapter plus all the interviews that I've done in this book, you're going to get so much more information than the first time around. There is no rock that was not unturned in the second book. I covered everything. I mean, I racked my brain. I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all the way. I want every answer. I want all the dirt. I want all the stories from the set. That's what's in there.
Cool. And was there any like part of that along the way? Because I know, for folks that aren't followed you as well, I'll definitely put the links down below so they can catch on the social on Facebook, or join, of course, your Stephen King group that you do, as well. So, which is fantastic because you're constantly posting. I think you post pretty much every day on the group, which is great. So along the way, I've had a chance, and everybody that's followed you on the group has had a chance to sort of see, I guess, some of the warts of you grinding out this book, some of the achievements in writing this book. I'm sure that there's a lot more to it, obviously, than what you're sharing on social media. I'm sure there's lots of hair pulling, banging the head against
Oh, you have no idea.
nothing extremely wrong. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna finish this damn thing?
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you, what for you was maybe the most was there any parts or any like singular parts that were most difficult for you in trying to dig up certain information, or was it just the whole thing, put it together as a whole that you found difficult or most
The
challenging?
2 the 2 top things I would have to say that's difficult is time, because and I don't mean this in any kind of a disrespectful way, but the first book was written during the pandemic. If I wasn't home during that pandemic, that book would take 2.5 years to write. So I had time to write the first one. The second one, the pandemic was over and, the tail end of it, and then it was over. And so I had to go back to work and just like everybody else. And so I had to write every night after work, write on days off, squeak a few minutes here, a few minutes there, answer emails, reach out to those who I wanted to be in it, wait for their response. So yeah, time. Time was a major thing. And then the other part was as far as pulling your hair out would probably be just putting it together. It's not easy with editing and formatting and make sure everything looks good. Did you leave out anything? Did you misspell someone's name? Going through that with a fine tooth comb 100 times just to make sure it looks good. That can be very stressful too.
Well, especially a book that big too. Like I put a little book that was about 120 pages a couple of months ago, and even I know just going through the editing process, reading that over as many times as I had to, I'm like, I kind of just want to get this into my life at this point. I can only imagine what it must have been like. And then obviously you love what you do and you're very proud of it as you should be. But at the same time, this is something that's just you breathe it, you eat it, you sleep it until it's
Yeah,
gone wrong.
and my wife, I love her to death, and God bless her. She was there every step of the way, but there was times where it was stressful too because it's like, hey, you know what? It's you have to learn to let the book go for a night. Let's have a date night, or let's watch a movie. It's
Yeah.
really hard and stressful sometimes when you're trying to finish something so important and you have a lot of passion for and a love letter to Stephen King fans and Dollar Babies, and let that go for a night and get back to your real life and have family time. It's really hard, but
It
you
is, yeah.
you have to do it. You have to squeak that time in there.
Now, did you so there wasn't really a schedule for writing it then, it was just the schedule was just sort of whenever you had time and
Yeah. I mean, I literally wrote every minute I had a free minute. If I wasn't mowing my yard or working at my job, I was writing. That's just a true fact. Every second I had it, I could. And my publisher, Bear Manor Media, thank goodness he is a very patient man. As I asked him about the deadline, and he's like, "Just don't rush it. Let's make it look great. Take your time, but you still have a deadline, you know, anyway."
yeah.
And then going back to the length of the book, I asked him, I said, "Hey, is there?" Because things started adding up. My material started stacking up, and I'm like, "So is there a page limit on this?" And he goes, "No, write as long as you want. It's okay. Do run with it." That's what his word. He said to me. He said, "Run." Well, I ran
Yeah.
all right. 150 pages later.
One relay race, the Pasa Batangi.
Thought. So yeah, so I give kudos to my publisher for being very patient and understanding and let me kind of have a free will with what I wanted to do with this.
Yeah, because 'cause imagine for something like this, like, that's gotta be so tough because, I'm sure that every time you flip open a rock and you discover something new, all of a sudden that opens up a whole other world of other possibilities and things too. So was that hard for you to say, "Okay, this book is done," as opposed to, kinda, "Wait a minute, one more thing, and let's get to this a bit more."
I was technically done with the book probably this summer, but then I got an email from a dollar baby in Italy, uh Luca. And he said to me, he said, "I just" and the program was done. The king had, was done with the program. No, wait. Yeah, 2023. I'm getting mixed up here. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So this August. And he said, "Hey, I just finished making my my dollar baby that crap, he was hitting the camera there. He said, "Hey, I just finished making my dollar baby film called The Reach." And this was August of this year. And he said, "Can I be in your book? I have your first one. I loved it. Can I be in your second one? I heard you're making a second one." And I said, like, no, I'm kind of, I've got a deadline. I really don't have any more room. I don't have time." And he goes, "Please, I will give this to you in 3 days. I promise." And I thought it was just a joke. I thought it was like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. No lie. 3 days later, Federal Express came to my door and there was the movie in my hand. And I'm like, this guy really wants to be in my book. But you
That's
know what?
commitment.
I'm glad he did because the reach, his version of that story, which has never been adapted before by Dollar Baby, was amazing. It was absolutely unbelievably good. And I'm like,
Sorry, so what was the film called? What was the story?
huh?
Sorry, what was the film called?
The reach.
The Reach, okay.
And was absolutely amazing, beautifully filmed, acting top drawer. I grab tissues when you watch it because the ending will get you. And I'm like, I told my wife, I said, I'm glad I waited. This has to be in the book. But then there was one more person and they said, "Can I be in your movie?" And she was such a sweetheart and she was so nice. And she was new as a director. It was her first movie ever. And she was so nice. And I thought, you know what? Fine. So I told my publisher, like, "I need an extension." And he's like, "Another one?" And I'm like, "One more, just one more, okay?" And he's like, "Okay." So those two are the last two that enter in there. And I'm glad they're in there.
That's fantastic that it came together, and when you had those 2 in there and you knew you had all this content in front of you, and it was essentially completed content, did you find it very challenging to sort of put all the pieces together in a cohesive order in the book, or was that something that came fairly easy to you, and it was just a matter of, "Well, this just goes in this category, this goes in this category?"
Well, I kind of had my own little method, I guess, if you want to put it that way, as far as like a structure, as far as what was going to be in the book, where it was going to be, who's going to be first, who's going to be second, who's going to be third, which chapters, how many sections. I had a whole kind of like a game floor plan, if you or whatever you want to phrase it. I knew where everything was going to go. I just wanted to make sure everything got in there. I didn't want to leave anyone out or leave anything out at all. And I quadruple checked everything before I finalized it, and it's all in there.
That's great. So, and obviously, I know you mentioned it a couple times. And you and I kind of had the slide chat about this a little bit before I hit the magic record button about the Dollar Babies program ending, and people are probably watching this going, "Wait a minute, why are he wrote a book about something that doesn't even exist anymore?" But I'm going to get to that in a second because the next thing I do want to ask you before I forget is I have to balance things out because I asked you what some of the more challenging things are about the book. Obviously, I'd be feel remiss if I didn't ask you about maybe some of the most exciting, fun things where about putting the book together. I assume that it wasn't all just, banging your head against the wall and sweating and bleeding all over the pages and all that stuff. There was probably some fun to what I would think. Maybe the blooper section or what was the full one for you?
There was a couple of things that were fun about it. Number one, writing about the Dollar Baby Film Fest in Davenport, what that was like, some of the behind the scenes stories that happened that I can release. That was things that happened behind the scenes, and the partying and the dinners and the just meeting the directors and everything was just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed remembering going back and hashing those memories to put in the book. Um,
So
of
there was some stuff, sort of, there was some stuff that was too juicy or too, scandalous to put in the book. If you want to share it now, just get it off your chest. I kind of remember telling you about this.
I'll say this: what happens in Davenport stays in Davenport. Maybe we'll have an unedited version come out one day. You never know. Uh, but no, that was a fun
Section.
part. I liked a lot of the stories from the interviews. The stories on the set. Making a movie is never easy, but there's some funny things that can happen on a movie set. There's some things don't work, or special effects don't work right, or people trip and fall, or whatever. There's some really funny things that the stories that the directors told, and I really enjoyed reading Bill's in there.
That's cool. So, and I imagine some of those probably went into the blooper section. Then
Oh,
people
it's in there.
will
It's
just go out. Oh, my crazy catting.
your co-host there.
Was she just wants to push buttons. She's as bad as I am, worse than I am. And this you're getting those sounded that it's funny because every time she hears me talking and it's not to her, she's like, "I'm in on that. But you're not talking to me. I thought I had you trained here. That's a sign to remind you. I'm the boss. I get all the attention here. But at least you're getting this end of her. There's been times where she's come over and you just get full on starfish.
It's funny.
It's funny until it happens. You're like, I don't need to know that about where he
Yeah,
got.
there's some really funny parts, but to kind of extend on that for a second, Rick, there are also some sad parts in this book. There's a scene, and I'm going to spoil it here a little bit. That my wife literally cried for 10 minutes straight when she read it. There's a filmmaker that I interviewed who was in the Ukraine, and it was right before the war started, and we got to do the interview, but as we were doing the interview, each day we stayed in contact. The war was getting closer and closer, and then
Mm.
everything happened. And then he told me, "This is probably the last time you'll hear from me, but I don't want to spoil what he wrote." His final quote to me is in this book, and my wife read that and she bawled her eyes out for 10 minutes. And so you read the book, it's it's a tearjerker. So yeah, when you affect people on the other side of the world in the middle of chaos, I I I still can't believe that myself. I can't believe that my book did that to someone, that made them so inspired that they would not make a movie in a country that's being torn apart.
Are you still in touch with this person or?
Not heard from him since that interview.
Oh man.
So yeah.
You just hopefully, yeah, you never know. Hopefully he's all right. And
You know. I also added a memoriam to the book. I did that just for two people in the first book, family members. But this one, I thought to myself, you know what? I love and respect the Dollar Baby so much. I reached out to them and said, "Hey, did you have anyone pass away that was part of your film? Let me know who they are, and I'm going to put them in a special chapter in my book." And there was actually quite a long list. And so I made a memoriam to people who were either a cast member or a crew member or whatever that was in a part of the Dollar Baby. And that includes, this is sad to say, Warren Ray. He directed Maxwell Edison. He was in my first book. Warren's final interview before he passed away is in this new book. And there's a special memoriam in the back for him.
man, it's yeah, that hits. That hits you. I mean, you're doing all this stuff obviously for the love of it, same as everybody else is making the films and involved in these films, and it does feel in some way. But then it's you become so attached to it. But then of course there's the other side, which unfortunately does happen sometimes with people passing. And
That was a hard chapter to do, Rick. That ain't gonna lie to you. That was hard to write. That was hard to put together. Although,
yeah, but good for you for doing that though. That's I've noted that clearly means a lot to you. It means a lot to King fans. I think it's great that you have that out there. I think that remembering those that came before is so important, and
yeah,
any genre, any aspect, etc. And no doubt that means a lot to the people and the families and those friends that were most affected by it too. It's a really cool way to memorialize them.
yeah. I reached out to Warren's wife and told her about it, that he was in this and I was doing this, and she just was not only in tears, but she was honored that I would do that. So I'm glad I did it because it's important.
Yeah, no, it really is. Um, no, I know maybe this is a terrible time to segue into the end of anything. But since I did tease, we did kind of bring that up a little bit as well. I do want to talk to you about that because that's huge. I mean, we're talking about the sequel to something that is essentially that is ended. And I know that was a huge kick in the pants to me. And you're obviously the first person I thought of when I heard about that about a year ago. That I think I actually heard that from you, I believe,
Yeah.
where you posted that about the Dollar Babies as we know them, as far as painstaking going to this website, writing the submission for it, paying your dollar, and then having the contract is no more.
Yeah.
Uh, could you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that, about your feelings when you first saw that, and what does that mean to the Dollar Babies?
Well, first of all, no one saw it coming. Everybody was just thought, hey, this is going to go on for, and who knows how long till King passes away himself. Or maybe some people actually hope that Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, carry the torch and carry the program on. But then when we all found out, one of the Dollar Babies actually contacted me and told me, and I'm like, I thought it was joking. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I went and saw it for myself, and I'm just like, well, now I have an ending to the book. That was the first reaction, to be honest.
That's no, right.
I was like, what? There's the ending. Then I thought about it and I thought, wait a minute, like we were talking about, there's filmmakers out there around the world who are just hearing about this program at that time. And they're like, oh, well, I guess I can't make my movie now. Can you imagine all the talented people out there that were about to make a movie and now they can't? Films we'll never see. That was the hardest part, I think, because my whole journey with this Dollar Baby program and the books and knowing everyone, there's the talent out there in this world is amazing with these films, absolutely amazing. So when I think about the ones who didn't make it because the program ended, it's really sad and it's disappointing. I was a little angry actually, even at King, just at the general that the program ended because of all those people that won't have that opportunity. But then I thought about it and I was like, wait a second, just because the program ended, just because you can't make a movie anymore, doesn't mean the Dollar Babies have to end, at all. Because there's
It's marvelous hat. Jeez. Sorry, it's a zoo over here, I tell you.
but anyway, there's festivals, there's film festivals. There are my books. There are things that are coming up that people are talking about in the next year or two that they want to carry that program through festivals. They want to say, hey, we made these movies, let's show the movies. The program's over, let's show them. And that started in October. Well, actually started with us with the Stephen King rules, 1 and 2. But as far as recently, there was a Stephen King convention in Vegas, and they played I think 24 Dollar Baby films. I wasn't there. I was trying to finish the book, but some of the Dollar Babies are in my book were there, some of them, and they got to show their movies to a whole you know new group of people who've never heard or seen these before, and they were happy. They were excited. So that's just the beginning of what's to come. You know.
Yeah, and regarding that too, now I don't know if you have any, information on this as well, or I'm sure you probably thought about it, and you certainly have a lot of connections that maybe have thought about it or have other information as far as what happens with the dollar babies that have already been made now. So I know previously they couldn't be shown; they could only be shown at festivals. They couldn't be shown for commercial use. Even if all you're doing is just upload it, say on YouTube for free, you're not going to monetize it, whatever. Do you know about what happens to those movies now? Does that mean that the contracts are essentially going to be up for free range? Is there like I guess, a time where the contract sort of expires? I don't know if it's like a book where they have to wait 50 years and it's sort of, open reigns on it, or public domain rather, or are they allowed to show them anywhere now that Dollar Baby
Well,
is
Well,
over?
that was discussed on the Dollar Baby page on Facebook there, and there was a lot of questions about that. They're like, "Hey, does this mean we can show these anywhere now, or just show we own these? Do we?" A lot of people had a lot of questions. They weren't sure what does that mean as far as legal wise goes, and some of them say, "No, you need to go back and read the contract. The contract is still valid. You can't do certain things. You can't profit from it. You can't show them on YouTube." So they're like, "Yeah, well, now what do we do?" That's that festival out in Vegas. That's why they had shown them there. And there's talk of other festivals coming in the near future of showing them there. So basically, I think you may not be able to make the movies anymore, but you'll be able to see the movies. And I think there's gonna be more festivals than ever. Yeah. Because there wasn't a lot of festivals before. So yeah, I think that getting to the festivals together is a hard task too, because you got to see which films can you play, who's going to show up, getting the venues that to play them at, and you have to do all this basically for no budget. You can't make profit from it. That's part of the contract. So it's like, how do you put all this together and not make money? It's tough, but hey, you know what? Anybody's gonna have a festival, I'll be there if you want me to.
Exactly.
I'd love to
Just
talk about 'em.
yeah, no, okay. Well, I guess it's all about just getting the right sponsors for that and having people that are just as passionate about it that
Yeah.
also have money to spend on this so that people can put it together because at the end of the day, you can only charge people so much at the door to get into to see these things. But would that be that would, I guess really in a way that'd be considered profit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that. Some people are breaking that rule. I don't wanna say anything, but
Mm.
yeah, you're not supposed to do that. It says no money made, period. But, who knows? I mean, King is, pushing 80, late 70s here,
Yeah.
and he who knows? He might not even care at this point, what people do with them. I don't know, but,
Yeah.
I
You wish that movie that chance though. I mean, if they end up going off to, I mean, it's terrible to think about this, but that's reality is that eventually it'll be up to his estate, I would imagine, and then it'd be a matter of whether or not his estate wants to go after that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. It would be up to them and all those folks to decide, "Hey, just do whatever you want with them. We don't care anymore." Or they're gonna say, "Hey, no, these contracts are still, binding, and you can't do this, that, and the other." It's really just a subject and an unanswered question that's really just up in the air. No one really has a
Right.
true answer except for King and his office, and we haven't really heard anything, so we don't know. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to see it in a festival. Obviously, that would be the ideal way to see these movies because you're seeing them with a crowd of people that also want to see these movies, and there's discussions that could happen, especially if you got some of the Dollar Baby makers there. But also, how cool would it be if they could somehow find a way to put that into, into libraries as well or universities, so that they could
Yeah.
have maybe special screenings for that, where folks can get a chance, get inspired, go off, make their own, maybe not so much Dollar Baby movies, but do something similar to some of these Dollar Baby movies.
Well, like $1 Baby told me, he said to me, he said, "I spent, you know, X amount of thousands of dollars on this film, took my time out of my life, got people together to make this, they sacrificed time with their families and what
Mhm.
work and whatnot to make this film. Nobody wants to see it sit on a shelf collecting dust, you know? Why we need to get it out there. We need people to see this. Let's entertain. Let's show the fans what they want." And I'm gonna say this, when I was at the festival in Davenport, the people who were in the audience, let me tell you something. Those people were so happy and applauded. Some even stood up. They talked to the directors and us in between films, because there was always a few minute
Sure.
uh, spare time there in between films and interviews, and we would talk and this excitement in their eyes, and they're like, "Oh, that was so great," and they laughed. It was wonderful. It's like seeing kids on Christmas, to see these for the first time. I've seen them all, and I know how I felt when I saw them. So for other people to see their reactions, that's the reward. That's what it's all about right there, you know? And so, like someone told me the other day, they said, "Well, hey, I'll never be able to get to a festival. I live in the middle of, middle America. I'm never going to get to a festival." And then that's why I tell people, buy my book because if you buy the books, and that's another thing too, Rick. I wanted to get the most detailed information as possible because I want these to be the next best thing for not being there. Can't get to a festival, read these two books, and it's pretty much your own personal festival through word, through literature. And that's why I mean it is so uh, detailed, and I ask the directors questions that they've never would imagine that someone would ask them. I got
Yeah.
answers out of these people. I'll tell you that much.
Um, I wonder. So with the end of the Dollar Babies, and obviously that you can't, at least as far as everybody knows, and you can't really just go and show the movies to just anybody outside of a film festival. Is that the same as the scripts as well, or the scripts sort of within that contract? I mean, could you, for example, maybe do a sequel to your sequel and include some scripts maybe from Dollar Babies, or
Well, okay, so there's not that many sequels to a Dollar Baby film, but one that stands out the most is from AJ Gribble, who did Cain Rose Up, which is based on King's story. But then AJ made a prequel to it called Garish, and there is a third sequel. I have the script for it, but he didn't get to make that movie because the program ended. And that was a kind of a thin line because he's using the characters from King's story, but it's not an
mm,
actual King's story. And he wrote the script. King didn't write the script. So it never got made, but I know what happens, and I can't tell you what happens. But it is there is actually, believe it or not, there is a chapter with me and AJ in there called it's actually called One from the Vault. AJ Gribble, Creakles and Sequels is the chapter, and it talks about doll babies who made a prequel or sequel to their film. He's probably the main one who did one. So
Okay. But what about even the scripts or the movies that have already been made? I wonder if there's a way that, um, if you were to say get crazy and thought, you know what, I feel like I need to write another 1,000-page book. If you'd be able to include some of those like some of the originals scripts in it.
that's a good idea. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would have to reach out and get some of those scripts, from those filmmakers. I have some myself, but it wouldn't be enough to fill a book with. But
Sure.
well, maybe yeah. I guess there may be, if people were interested enough to see what the scripts look like and put it in a book. I guess that could possibly be a something to think about.
Sure, there you go. The Dollar Babies at the end. Okay.
Oh no, 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 no! It's never the end. Because like, well, I'm going to go. I was going to wait till the end of the show, but I'll go ahead and say it now since you said the that word. I
Okay.
thought this was going to be the end when I wrote this book. That's why one of the reasons why I wrote it so big. I thought I'm not going to make a third book. There's no way. I'm going to put everything in this one, and I'm done with it. But then I got this idea. Why about a trilogy? Because I ever since I was a little kid, I've loved sequels, and my introduction to this book is a great story about why I love sequels. And even more than sequels, I love trilogies. So, breaking news for you and your listeners out there, I literally just found out right before the show, contract is done. There will be a third book, and it's called Stephen King Dollar Baby Encore.
See, Encore is so much better than the end. This is more the Dollar Baby author, not me.
It will not be 950 pages, I promise you. That was one of the agreements my publisher said. Do not make it this big. I'm like, okay.
Oh, I thought you were gonna make it even bigger.
No, there will be a third book. It will be a trilogy. So yes, it's official, and I'm allowed to announce that now as of tonight. So you got the first tidbit there.
That is very cool. So everybody really needs to catch up on their reading. So that's their winter and their next summer sorted out.
Yeah.
So now, do you know what's going to be in this book that maybe wasn't in the previous?
Um,
Yeah, I don't know if
I
that's
don't
something
want
we
to
can help with.
spoil it or say too much. It's still all new. I mean, everything's all up here in my head, but
Sure.
it's a little bit, what something's not broke, don't fix it. So, wait, no, something is that how it goes? I don't whatever that phrase is.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff from the first two that people like, and there will be some new features in this new book that I think people are gonna like. It's gonna be I really want to dig more into the behind the scenes stuff. I really, really, really like being in that area. I don't think it even more deeper into that. So, but holidays are coming up. This is November. Christmas is, I mean, here just in a month, and I've already seen commercials for Christmas and everything on TV.
Oh,
So,
I know. We got Christmas music on the malls here now. It's awful.
oh yeah, Mariah Carey will not leave our heads. But no, these two books make great Christmas gifts. I mean, if you have someone on your shopping list, you truly don't know what to get them, but they like Stephen King, or they like movies, books, they're about movies. They want to know how movies were made, or they just want to read about the doll babies because they've never heard about them before, or will never see one of the movies, but they want to know what that's like. These two books will cover that. I promise you. Everything you need to know are in both of these, and it's a lot of fun too. There's a lot of fun stuff in there. So get out your Christmas list. Put these on there.
Absolutely, and maybe not so much for the stocking, but they'll definitely go great under the tree.
Yeah,
Keep the holes in stock.
the bigger slate to bring that bad.
You got that right. He's gonna need an extra few reindeer, and he's gonna want to paint it really well.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really surreal too, Rick. I told you last time our first interview when the first book came out that the whole thing was surreal, that I would have done something like this and everything. But the roller coaster ride that I rode since then, since last time we've talked and up until now with this new one is just, it's really something to be proud of. I'm very proud of this one. You know, I liked the first one, and it was getting my feet wet, but this second one, I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy with the result.
And what's the difference between the 2? Is it more just a matter of you're more, I don't know, dialed in, you got way more information out of the interviews that you did, you just were able to dig a lot deeper than the first one?
Well, a lot of that, you know, I got to go past, you know, the first one, like I always say, I pulled the curtain back and invited people in to come see what the Dollar Babies were like.
Yeah.
This one is pull the curtain back, come in, have a seat, have a nice glass of wine, sit by the fire, let's talk. That's what this one is, you know.
Hmm.
And you're right. I got dirt. I got stories. I've got you know, things you will not read anywhere else from a movie set. It's in this, if it on a Dollar Baby film set. And the categories, the chapters, there's stuff in here that I put, that wasn't in the first book, um, that, is a lot of fun. You know, there's let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
celebrities that are involved with this. I have essays.
Who's in there?
Yeah, let's talk about it. I've got essays in here from Tommy McLaughlin, great friend of mine. He directed Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. There's a great essay in there of that from him. Richard Chesmar, the great writer he is. He is the
Yeah.
next generation of Stephen King, I believe, or just Stephen King of this generation. I love Richard. He
It's fantastic.
contributor. Robin Firth, Queen of Midworld. You know, we all know Robin Firth if you're familiar with her and Dark Tower, and
Mhm.
uh, knowledge that she knows everything about. Um, and I also have a section here of the fans themselves. I thought to myself, I reached out to some people and I said, "Hey,
Hmm.
you want to share your thoughts? You know, about Stephen King? You want to share your thoughts about the Dollar Baby Fest that you watch online? What did you think about that? What was your favorite movie? What did you?"
What a
So
cool idea.
and, the response I got from people, they were like, "Can I be in your book? Can I be in your book? I love it." So I had to try to make room there for everybody, but I try to be fair and get everyone in there.
Yeah.
And, it's nice that the fans are involved in this book too. It's not just celebrities, there's fans in there, and they're excited, you know, they're like, "Wow, I'm in a book about Stephen King," you know?
Well, so that's what a cool idea because it really is all about the I mean, obviously, if you don't have anybody watching these movies, what's the point of making them? So that's fantastic that you involve them because they are such a big process, especially if something like this where it's predominantly or should only be seen in the festivals, which only work if you got the people that show up for it. And that's really cool that you also got the people that show up for this book who showed up for the films. And what a really cool full circle it would be for them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you know, the directors that I got to meet in person in Davenport, you know, to sit down and speak with them on a personal level and, you know, swap stories and, you know, visit with them. And I put some of our conversation in there. Some of it's personal and I left out, you know. But it was really nice to, and there's pictures. By the way, Rick, there's pictures in here.
Oh, even
There
better.
was no pictures in the first one. There's pictures in this one.
Oh, that's so cool. Or are the pictures of like the movie posters and that or behind the scenes stuff or pictures of
There's
people where you like, that's who that guy is?
Well, there's movie posters for each interview, just like in the first book. But
Yeah.
in the chapter about the Stephen King Rules Festival in Davenport, there's a whole bunch of pictures from there, so you can see what it was like.
Oh, cool.
Those in there. I have an exclusive picture in there on the set from Last Rung from the Ladder, on the ladder, but the James Cole version from the 1980s, and
Oh,
Daniel's era.
okay.
They were kind enough to donate a picture exclusively from that set in the mid '80s. That's in there. There's some other pictures that are in there. So I was really happy to be able to do that. So
We were. Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And I don't know, maybe it's just a kid in me or something, but I like pictures and books.
yeah, I did too.
It
I mean,
brings it to life.
you remember back in the day when they used to have paperback tie-ins, like when a movie would come out in the theater, like say Poltergeist, and then have the
Right,
paperback
right.
version at the store, and in the middle of the paperback there would be about 8 pages of pictures from the movie. So
Yeah.
you get to see those before go into the movie theater to see the movie itself, and you're like, oh wow, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I can remember doing that for what the first Ghostbusters movie. Flight of the Navigator was like one of the earliest books I can remember reading about that had all the pictures of the movies too. And that's how I became a complete nerd that way as far as behind the scenes stuff and special features. And, it's like I say to people, a lot of times I'll get a movie, or at least when I get it in a physical medium, anyways, and I'm always watch the special features first to see how they did it, and then I'll watch the movie so I can fully appreciate how it was, how it ended up. So I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do too, and that's another thing I want to say. The behind the scenes stuff in this is really really interesting because you know you don't know what goes into making the film unless you're there on the set. It
Right.
can be stressful, things don't work right, there can be arguments, there can be bad weather, lots of things can happen, and
Especially the past you work out.
yeah. I asked these filmmakers, and there's something else I want to touch on in a second.
Sure.
Um, I asked them, what was that like? What give us a day on the set. Tell us what it was like, and they tell me. They're like, well, and they don't sugarcoat it either. So that was really interesting to get the really true dirt of what it's like to be on a movie set. You really feel like you're there when you're reading
Right.
their answer. Um, but one of the things I wanted to tell you was another part in this book is, and I'm really excited about this, is I have cast members and crew member interviews in this book. So it's not just the directors this time. This time I got the cast members and the people who did like some of the music for the special effects, the composers. Um, one of them, for example, is Ross Childers, if I'm pronouncing the last name. He was in the band Collective Soul. You remember the band Collective Soul?
Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
love those guys.
he did the music for Vanessa Wright's Rainy Season, and she connected me with him, and I've got an interview with him in there. So Ross
Oh,
is.
that's so cool.
I have the kids that were in Last Rung on the Ladder. By the way, interviewing kids is so much fun. They have the best answers. I swear.
Absolutely.
But they're in there. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed interviewing them. As a matter of fact, the director of Last Rung on the Ladder, I told him, I said, I loved interviewing the two kids from your film. And he goes, let me guess, they told you I owe them popsicles. Like, yeah, they did.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been yeah, that's so cool, eh? Especially when they're involved in some pretty scary stuff that's not necessarily very kid like, but then to get behind the scenes and sort of see like that, I don't know, innocent side of the characters or the actors that created these
Yeah.
characters that are, put through some probably some pretty not very nice situations.
Yeah. And another interesting too, Rick, is that some people were like, who read the first book and they loved it and they found it interesting stuff. A lot of people wrote me and they said, what happened to them? What did they happen after they made their movie? What happened to those people?
Yeah.
And there's a chapter in there of called "Where Are They Now?" And I put in there what happened to those filmmakers after that book came out and after they made their movie. Um, I won't lie to you. I tried to keep it as up to date as possible, but as I kept getting an extension for the second book, some of those people were getting more projects. So some of it is as current as I could get it. But some went on and did other movies. Some people wrote
Mm.
books. Some people got acting roles on TV shows. Um, and then there's some people that went back to their 9 to 5 job. And to me, that's sad because you look at their
Sure.
movie, it's like, God, that was so great and so talented, and you did a great job. What are you doing now? "Oh, I'm working at the, such and such store." I'm like, oh, well, that's you don't belong there. You need to be back in the camera again. You know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I guess I know it's a choice. Maybe it's something they sort of came out of their usual everyday 9 to 5 to do this amazing thing and then back to it. I guess some people just do the 9 to 5s, don't have that amazing little segment in their life. So
Well, yeah, it's 2 things actually. It's the old Andy Warhol quote, 15 minutes, everyone has their 15 minutes, so
mm,
there's that. And then there's some people that they heard about the program, they thought, "Hey, you know what? I wanna go be part of Stephen King history. I wanna go make a Stephen King Doll Baby movie." They'll go grab, their phone, their camera, or whatever, spend a couple of
yeah,
$100, $1,000, whatever, go make that movie, and then they'll go back to their life, but at least they can have that, and say, "Hey, I was part of this," or
right.
something to brag about around the holidays for someone to say, "What did you do this summer? I made a Stephen King short movie."
Yeah, what did
But,
you do?
but so it's kinda interesting to see what happened to these people, you know? And I got
Mhm.
that idea, by the way, whenever I watch a movie, in a movie I really, really like, and I really like the characters, and the credits start rolling, I'm, like, sitting there in the audience, I'm like, "Well, what happened to so and so? Well, what
Sure.
happened to the bad guys?" I always questioned, what happened next. So that's why I
Yeah.
put that in the book. I want to do my own "Where Are They Now?" You know?
I think it's great. I mean, you're striking all the chords with me. I mean, that's one of my favorite little segments out of Room More magazine that I regularly contribute to. It's one of the everybody has their process. So usually I'll flip through the magazine, kind of check everything out, kind of make a mental note of what I'm going to read first. And there is a section called "Where Are They Now?" And that's usually one of the first sections I read because I just find that kind of stuff so fascinating.
Yeah.
Like where did this kid over here that got killed while eating a candy bar in Friday the 13th? What's he doing right now? Yeah, what are the goodies doing right?
Right, just so you know. But I know what you're saying. I agree. I was,
Yeah.
and I do the same thing with that franchise too. I was wondering what, they got, in the movie for what, 15, 20 minutes, and then they got killed off by Teresa. What happened to that person?
Yeah.
Teaching Iowa somewhere or something.
He's a kid counselor now, but we don't talk about that.
But
Yeah,
no,
really taking the stuff.
like I said, I'm really proud of this book, and I put everything in it that I put my heart and soul into this one. I really did. Uh, it was tough. There were some stressful times, the trying to put it together and make sure it was perfect and everything. And I didn't want to disappoint anyone either. I wanted to. Okay, it's like this. You have a band put out an album, okay? Led Zeppelin 1 or Van
Yeah.
Halen's first album. How are you gonna top that first album, right? We gotta do the second album.
Cell phone breaks it or breaks them, right?
Yeah, it's gotta be bigger, better, louder, That's
Yeah.
exactly my attitude when I first started the second book, is I gotta make it better than the first one, and I gotta make it bigger, and I gotta give the people more, you know? I guess that's part of my horror sequel franchise side of me where like what's his name says in Scream, sequels, the audience wants more blood count, more gore. They expect it, so
Exactly.
that's the kind of attitude and motivation I had when I wrote this, is I wanted to give them more, bigger, better.
Now, was there ever any point during that process that you're like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe I took on more than I can handle. This might not even work out." Or was it
Oh,
always just, "This is really tough. I'm going crazy, but it's gotta keep going."
yeah, again, there were some times where I was like a freight train. I was going writing like a madman. I was on fire. It was working. It was great. I was happy with where I was going with it.
Yeah.
And then just like with any writer, you're going to hit that writer's block. You're going to get that wall, and when you hit it, it's a horrible, horrible place. And I had writer's block during the process of this for about whew, 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't wanna look at it. I couldn't think of anything. I'm like, "It's not finished, but I don't know where to go next after this chapter," you know? And then I just took a break. I had to step away. And then I came back and I looked back at the first book again. I talked to some friends, got some pep talks, and I even watched a couple of horror Stephen King movies to get motivated. And then I got back into the mood again, and then I was back on track again. But, that's gonna happen with any writer. I mean, you've written your books,
I think so.
it happens, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that you kept on going and that, you know, the light for you that was getting brighter wasn't just that freight train coming back to turning back around and inject you. So that's good. What was that feel like for you? What a huge project for you that you did. Now, I was going to ask you, what was your feeling when yeah, finally got it all done? You finally got that final draft back to the editor, to your publisher rather, and it was done. But before you answer that, maybe I'm better off backtracking my own question and asking you first. How long did it take you to actually finish the first draft compared to going through all the edits and having to go through all and fine tune it once you had the bones of it down?
Okay, so I've like I said, I had to get those extensions of the
Mm.
deadline from my publisher because those extra filmmakers wanted to be in it, and then after I saw their movies and I talked to them, they had to be in it, and I really fought for them. I really fought for that extra time because I did not want to leave them out. They deserved to be in it. They earned it.
Sure.
Uh, and I already had the ending of the book already, but I had to put them in there. I had to squeak it in there. I made it for them.
Well,
Once that was done, once the book was done, as far as that goes, and it's like, okay, let's fine tune it. Let's go through the editing. Let's check it one more time. And I said it to the publisher. There were some changes that had to be made. There were some things editing that had to be fixed, and pictures added and things like that. But I turned it in. He wrote to me and told me, he said, "I'm quote, I'm going to fast track this and get this out because I wanted it out before the end of the year." And he didn't wanna do that. He's like, people putting books out at Christmas time, and I'm like, I want it out. I want it out before the end of the year. It's just it's a personal goal thing. It's I couldn't explain it to him, and I did a little bit understood, but anyway, he said, "Okay, if you can get it to me, let's fast track it." Once he saw it, and he saw it was better than the first one, and saw how much was in there, and he liked it a lot, and he said, "We're gonna get this out. We're gonna get it out quick." And he had 24-hour editors on his end, and the formatting and the printer ready, and all these kind of things. And he says, "Pick a date when you want it out," and I'm like, I don't know." And he said, we both said at the same time, basically, we were on the same mental wavelength. We said, "Halloween." So it came out on Halloween. Because he his email. He said, "How about Halloween? That's a good date." So
Yeah.
it came out on Halloween. So Halloween every year, the rest of my life will always be the anniversary of my book because that's when it came out.
That is so fantastic.
The response of when I announced that it was coming out on Halloween, I didn't know what to expect. I know there were some people that were interested. I know there were some people who were wondering when I'm gonna do another book. They knew I was working on it and stuff. They thought it was gonna be another some people even forgot because it was so long, 2.5 years. And when I announced it, the response was overwhelming. They were like, they couldn't wait. They're like, "Where do I go? Where do I order it?" And the pre-orders went through the roof. And my publisher is like, "We're getting it out there. It's happening. Go." You know.
That is so fantastic. And what was your feelings on that then? So to come back to that question, once this was all done, the final draft is out there, and it's just a matter of the sucker going to the printer. But essentially, other than of course the promotional aspect of it and marketing it and talking about it,
Yeah.
what was other than that? I mean, your work was done. You finally did it. Uh,
You know what?
what was that like?
Uh, it was actually different emotions. In one hand, I was like this gigantic sigh of relief. I was like, it's over. It's done. It's gone. It's out of my hands. That's it. And then I was like, got a little bit kind of like a book depression for about a couple of days. I was like, well, now what do I do?
And so
And
Nova's got here's the honey-do list here to keep you going now. It's
yeah,
like, oh,
because
this.
like I said before, I go to work, I come home, I write, I had a routine. So when it was over, I was like, well, now what do I do? And of course, my wife honeydew list is about this long. That's been waiting 2.5 years.
Starting to.
I've got an office to decorate and unpack, and just a little home projects, that I've been putting off for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was a slight, but it's also a feeling of accomplishment, pride, humble. I'm very humble because of the people who buy it, and who bought the first one. I constantly always thank anyone who buys it because I worked so hard. I worked really, really hard, and the reward is the reaction of the people, what they think of it.
Mhm.
I hope people like it. They seem to like it so far, from what I've heard. So you know.
Good, good. Well, I haven't ordered it yet. I've got a few things lined up for reviews, and then I'm going to be reading this bad boy. So
Yeah,
maybe
it'll get you through the winter. you know.
one way or the other, I could get a whole bike so I could blanket myself, make a fort, make a dollar, maybe make a dollar baby fort.
Just don't put it in the fireplace to stay warm if you get one of those hard Canadian winters up there, okay?
Yeah, we haven't had one of those in a while, so we shall see.
We don't talk about that, by the way. We don't say the S word. We don't talk about we don't bring out the shovels yet. We don't get we don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about your household, but this household, that's the swear word. That'll cost you a nickel on the door. At
we
least a nickel.
we're getting the temperatures. We haven't gotten anything yet, but they're talking next week. We're supposed to be getting something, but I don't know. But yeah, it's coming. It's nothing you can do about it.
It's an eventuality, it's just like Stephen King's collection, everything's eventual. So just like winter.
I know. Let me ask you, Rick. Bill, you saw the films when it was on the festival online in 2021, right?
Oh, I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one.
You haven't seen $80 baby films then?
None. I've
Oh,
heard about them through you. I heard a little bit about them through, of course, from chatting previously with Frank Darabont and his first one, The Woman in the Broom. The Dollar Baby film launched his career essentially. Because it's through that association, that he essentially walked on his set. I think was it the Shining, or I think was it The Shining? Yeah, it was The Shining because he plays a character in the ballroom. It was the only time apparently he's ever shaved his beard off was for
Yeah.
that scene, and then he made the deal for doing I think Green, yeah, it would have been the Green Mile. So that essentially launched his career. But no, I have not seen them.
Oh, see, now you don't know what they're like when you read this.
I Well, that's a big reason, and I mean, all the things you're telling me with you put into this book, I'm like I said, you're striking all the chords for me, so
Yeah.
I will be doing that. Is there no Sorry, go ahead, and I was gonna ask you another question about how maybe what's coming up next for a festival.
Oh, I was just gonna say real quickly, one of the things I really like about this second book, again, there's a lot of things I like about the second book, is I was able to get some Dollar Baby interviews and reviews and discussions, from filmmakers outside the US, in countries that I were not in the first book. Like I've got Greece, I've got Mexico, I've got France. There's some filmmakers from different countries that are in this one that it's really interesting to see fans in other countries and their view of King and his works, and what they think. You know, some of their countries they can't even get his books when they come out. They don't get them for another 6 months later, or even longer. So that's why they go to the fan pages because any news at all they get there, and they gives them something to look forward to in 6 months when their book finally shows up in their country. You know, but it's interesting to see his works translated through film, like I said, in Greece and Mexico and stuff like that. It's very interesting, and the films were amazing.
Now, are they all, even the foreign ones, that wrote in Greece, etcetera? I think did you mention Germany?
There's one in Germany. I think that was in the first book, though. But yeah,
Okay. So now, are these films then, are they the foreign films, are they built or made rather for an English audience, or are they subtitles, or?
a little bit of both. There's some that are all spoken in. Most of them are spoken in English, but there are some that have
Mhm.
subtitles. So it's very interesting to watch a Stephen King movie,
Yeah.
go to the country and reading subtitles. But I really enjoyed watching those, and some of them they're in black and white are so beautifully filmed and so artistic and film noir style.
Really? Yeah, no,
It's
that'd be really
amazing.
cool to see.
You know, and there are some of these they took King's story and they extended it some. They broadened. Like there was one where they took one of the characters in the story. They were only mentioned like for one sentence, but in the movie he has a bigger role. You
Oh,
know,
that'd be neat to see.
so I really like how people just kind of took King's work and just ran with it. They kind of did what they wanted.
Now, were there any surprises to you on sorry, go ahead.
I said they ran with it with what their vision of what they wanted to do, but they still respected his original text and original story.
Yeah, that'd be a really hard balance to do, I would think, because you wanna make, put your own personal voice into it, but you obviously it's a Dollar Baby, so I don't know if you need to, but you probably want to keep that first in mind that you wanna honor the story, the heart of the story that you're trying to tell as well.
Yeah. And there's a lot of it's interesting things too, as far as, when people have different visions of these stories, there's like 100 different versions of Man Who Loved Flowers, or, half a dozen versions of Woman in the Room, so it's the same story, but all told in different ways, different fashions. But I found
Yeah.
interesting, not just the black and white versions of these films, but there's some that are musicals, there's animated, there's, gender swapping, like if a character was a male in the story, but they made it a female in the film version, you
Huh.
know? So it's interesting to see, what changes, were made or how the director visioned it.
Yes, that'd always be cool if you could have a collection of, one of the ones like you mentioned, The Woman in the Room, and seeing all the different iterations of it. I think that'd be fascinating for me, I think.
Actually, it's funny you should say that. There's a chapter, actually an essay in here from Andrew Rouse, a great friend, a fantastic writer. He's
Right.
written over 50 books, and he wrote a chapter in here where he discusses 14 different versions of Man Who Loved Flowers, what the difference is, why are they different. It really breaks it down in extreme detail of comparing all those 14 versions. So you actually have that question answered in this book.
Well, well, I'm sure the blue person asking that question has ever wondered the same thing too, because that's yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, that's one of the things I like about remakes in a sense of seeing, okay, well, how can they do it differently? What can they do to give me a different, you know, they can, give the same story that I'm already familiar with and give it more depth or give me a different perspective on that story. So that's, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested to read about that.
Yeah, and I want to add this too, Rick, if I may.
Mm,
It's really nice. I mentioned before how I get emails constantly from people who bought the first book or dollar babies who bought the first book and they're
yeah.
now in the second book, whatever. But they send me pictures and they took my book on the road with them. Like there's a Max Blaska who's in this new book who
Mm.
worked on Last Rung on the Ladder. He has been doing the festival and awards circuit for the 6 months now. I mean, this guy has been traveling like crazy all over the country, promoting his movie. But he was on the red carpet in Santa Monica last week, and he's holding a copy of my first book with him on the red, and he sent me,
Cool.
and I'm like, wow, my book is on a red carpet. That's surreal to me, the, another one was Diana Russell, who's in this one. She's the one with remember I told you she was one of the 2 I squeaked there at the end?
Yeah.
She's the other one. She went to that Stephen King convention in Vegas, and she took my book on the plane with her, and she took a picture of it on her pillow in the hotel room. I didn't know how to feel about that, but I thought it was in a fangirl kinda way, I guess. I
But that's a little better than just a mint on the pillow. That's good.
But yeah, so when you see things like that, man, it really makes you feel very humbled, blessed, thankful, surreal. You know, it just makes me happy. You know.
Well, it definitely goes to show that, I guess you could only do the best you can pulling that arrow back, but it's nice to know that it hit its target.
Yeah, it's out there. It's doing its job. It's entertaining people. It's informing people. It's making people happy. We need that, And there's a new generation of King fans coming along, and people have to look at that too. There's I was talking with someone the other day, and they said, "Hey, I just started my youngest on a Stephen King, book, Eyes of the Dragon." I'm like, "Oh, that's a great book." But
Nice.
then after that, I would get him the short stories because that's a great start. A lot of people say, "Oh, should I start with It or The Sand?" I'm like, "How old are they? 12? No, you don't want to start with those."
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to see that the generation coming up is learning his works, and they're teaching him in schools too. There's a friend of mine who is in high school, and he said, "Hey, we just read one of Stephen King stories in my English class." I'm like, "Really?" So
His English teacher's way cooler than my English teacher ever was.
I think that's great that this generation is learning about King's works. You know,
Yeah, it is. It's funny, because you get so many, like anybody that's popular, super famous, gets to a certain level, they're going to get their, the haters kind of thing that pile on. It's like, oh, he's way overrated, etc. And it's like, well, you probably think he's overrated because, he might not have the flourish of Shakespeare, but he gets to you. It's like he writes to you. He writes about people because he writes about the cities and the people that we all know and it writes about monsters that, if we're lucky, we never have to worry about meeting those monsters in our lives, but
yeah,
still very much a part of our lives because that's just what he writes. And kind of to your point too regarding Rich Dismar, I think he's fantastic at that as well about writing that small town horror because again, he's writing about the places that we've all lived in, that we can relate to, the people that we know. We know all these characters already because we've met them. And I think that's one of the awesome things about Kane and maybe what pisses people off that don't get him or that maybe even haven't read them or read a story that wasn't quite for them, so they just assume that the rest of it's all the same too. It's like, well, we just don't get him.
and you know what else, Rick? Next year, 2025 is actually one of the biggest Stephen King years in quite a while. If you remember back in the day, there would be, you know, 3 or 2 or 3 King books and about half a dozen movies in the theater,
Mm,
of King's works. And then there was a dry spell for a while. I mean, we were lucky to get 1 or 2 books a year and maybe 1 adaptation movie or TV
mhm.
show. But next year, it's a big year. If you I don't know if you know this or not, but he's got, he always has a new book coming out every year, but the next year it might possibly be 2. But you've got at least 6 or 7 movies coming out in 1 year.
Jeez.
Uh, The Long Walk, The Running Man,
Yes.
Jerry, TV show. You've got, um, what's the other one? The Institute, and there's a couple other ones. They're all coming out next year, on top of his book, and then you've got that Stan anthology book coming out in August, which I'm very excited about. I don't know if you know about that.
Yes, yeah, with, the Brian Keane and, I wanna say, yeah, Christopher Golden.
Yeah, and it's, I looked at the details of that. It's an 800-page book, and it's prequel and sidequel and, sequel of The Stand, and King approved everything, and I'm so excited for that book next year.
No, 100%, it's gonna be pretty fantastic, and I know, Brian Keane is also doing a, graphic novel of, the Wendy trilogy books as well.
I heard about that, but then I didn't know when it's coming out. I'm like, I heard it was happening. It was gonna be someone was good doing it, but I didn't know when it was coming out.
I think
That's
it's more of a side project of his where he just sorta does it in his spare time and doesn't really have a deadline on it from my understanding.
Oh, okay.
So, I think he mentioned it a bit ago in his newsletter he put up, like, his whiteboard, and this is what's on there, and, of course, he had The Stand and Gwendy and that, and Gwendy's kind of, like, he's taking it seriously, but it's also sort of a side mission that he does between his other projects, like, The Stand, I think, is really one of the ones that is very much, prominent in his life right now,
Yeah.
at least from my understanding of everything that I've written about what he's doing.
Yeah. So we've got books, we've got movies, we've got comics, we've got hopefully more Dollar Baby festivals. I think people are gonna be we're getting happy and we're getting excited again, Is that
I know, well, Anthony, you gotta pull some plugs here for me and help me out and get some of them up north in Canada around the, around the Toronto area would be kinda nice.
you fly me up there, I'll come up.
I'll think about it, yeah. Hey, you make it happen, and, we'll see what we can do.
No, I'm not gonna bring the weather back with me though. You can keep that.
No, that's fine, yeah. We'll do the snow globe, we'll call it even. It's like a, yeah, no, that's fantastic, and yeah, congratulations too. I don't think through this whole conversation, I haven't said that, but congratulations to you there. That's a huge achievement, and it's pretty cool because, I always hate when I'm talking about an amazing achievement that somebody did, be it an incredible book, a movie, what have you, and then I always feel kind of, like, "Yeah, that's all great and all, but what are you doing now? What's next?" kinda thing, and I'm glad I don't have to ask you that because you already told us what's next, that you are in fact working on, the trilogy, the encore. Now, are you I mean, I hope for your own sake and, for your wife's sake as well. I hope they have a lot to do with the happiness of a household, I'm told. So, hopefully, we're gonna take a bit of a vacation from the Bali babies before you dive back into that one and,
Yeah,
you know, go for it.
I mean, part of me knows I need to stop, I need to rest, I need to enjoy the holidays, but there's the side of me now that, especially now the contract's officially, in the books, I'm, like, ready to start, but I'm like, "Nope, you need to rest, you need to rest." But to answer your question, what's coming up, what's happening? Well, first of all, there's a couple of things I didn't mention, before. You asked what I had been doing since the first book came out. Well, I was actually in a Stephen King, book that came out in France. Uh,
Woo!
it's called Fanzine. It's a big, huge hardback book, and this,
Cool.
author who puts these out, he does a different theme with every book. There was one about the Blob, there was one about The Thing, there was one about, whatever. Well, he did a Stephen King one, and it was really big, nice hardback, pretty thick, and I wrote the introduction for that, and then he interviewed me for that, and there's lots of pictures of it, just right. Here's the funny part. You can only get that book in France, and there's no English version of it. So I have a copy of this book, and I have no idea what it's.
I
So
love the Canadian, but my bilingualism is, if I never had enough to be rusty in the first place. So I'm not even saying it's rusty. It's abysmal.
like I told him, I go, look, I took French in high school for 2 months, and I got a D plus, and that was it. I have no idea what this book says, but you know what? It looks beautiful. He did a great job. But I can say I'm in a book in France.
That's
It's
cool.
pretty cool. And then also, I was I'm actually in a book that came out just a couple of weeks ago called Macabre a horror anthology. And what that is from MS Chambers, Samantha Chambers, my dear friend. It is 19 uh, writers and artists. It's a short story collection, an anthology of just horror, terror, macabre short stories. Nice collection. Art done by her daughter, uh, Beverly. And I wrote the introduction for that book. And my very first fictional story published is in this book. It's called Limited Edition. His name of this. It's actually not even a short story. It's a novella. That's actually it's actually how long it is.
Oh, that's
Uh,
great.
that is getting great reviews, by the way. A lot of people really like that story. And it's called Limited Edition. It's about a kid who is a really big fan. Okay, I don't want to spoil it. I'll just say this: if you've ever collected anything in your life, and you have that passionate love for collecting, you will love this story. That's all I can say. Um,
Mhm.
it's on the lines of Twilight Zone and Creep Shows. So if you're familiar with that, you know there's always twists at the end of a story.
Yes.
So there's a twist at the end of this story too. But anyway, it's called Macabre Horror Anthology, and you can get that at Amazon right now. Great, makes a great holiday gift, and there's some great short stories in that and art. Um, so you can get that. So I'm in that also.
Very cool. And when did you write that story?
You know what? I wrote that story 20 years ago.
Well, you're waiting.
Well, I started writing in 1990, and I just did it as a hobby. I did it for fun. I wrote 7 novels. I wrote 12 short stories, stuck them all in a drawer, let them collect dust. I never thought in a million years that they would see the light of day. And then I got a contributor to our local newspaper, and that's what started my writing career professionally, writing for the newspaper. And then, like I said, my book came out, the first one in 2021, and then now this new one. So someone MS Chambers, Samantha Chambers said, "Hey, I'm doing this anthology. Would you like to be part of it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd like to be part of it." First, it just started out writing the introduction, which I did. And then she's like, "Would you have a story for it?" And I thought, well, let me dig around my drawer, knock some dust off some story. So I dragged out limited edition and I read through it. And I'm like, God, I love this story so much, but it needs to be updated, because it was 20 years old, you know? So fine tuned it, changed a few things, made it better, cleaned it up, you know. You look at something you wrote 20 years ago, and you look at it now, yeah, you have to clean some things up, you know.
You would hope you would see some things that could be cleaned up that you've learned since then. Yeah.
Oh,
But
definitely. I even learned things from the second book from my first book. Some different things I cleaned up and made better than the first time around.
yeah.
Uh, anyway, so the story got put in this anthology, and people are loving it. They want more, and I've got more. So who knows? I might write another story, or take one of those other stories and knock the dust off it and put it in another anthology, or who knows? So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, no, good for you. That's pretty awesome that you're a man of many talents.
Yeah.
Not just the nonfiction stuff, but also writing stories as well. That's very cool.
Yeah. Someone asked me, they said, "Do I like writing fiction or do I like writing nonfiction?" I liked writing non fiction as a hobby years ago, but I like writing nonfiction because I like getting, questions answered. I like finding the truth. I like digging in hearing the stories and stuff like that. But now with the, little success with this limited edition and this new book, and hearing the response from people that really like it, I thought, you know what, maybe I'll dip back into fiction a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's encouraging. Well, you gave me a little bit of insider dirt and stuff too, so I'll give you a little bit too. And that's actually one of the things I'm thinking about doing also is pulling back a bit. As much as I love doing the nonfiction stuff as well. I mean, when I send out interviews, questions, if I love this is honestly my preferred method doing it this way on the podcast because it's a real conversation. I can see who I'm talking to, that kind of thing. But that said, what I do it through email, which I predominantly do, when I send out the questions, I'm like a kid waiting for Santa Claus, and then when I see the responses back, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I get all my questions answered," and it's like it's the best thing ever, and it's that thrill never gets old. So, I'm gonna keep doing that, but as far as other stuff goes, I'm gonna try to pull back a bit too and get more of the fiction stuff too. So it's very much different parts of your brain, I guess, different parts of your being that I think goes into nonfiction versus the fiction.
Yeah. I think with nonfiction, you're so worried that you want to get the facts. It's all about
Right.
the truth. You know, don't sugarcoat it. Don't give me false, information. Give me the truth. And
It's
that's why,
flying for a cool check.
yeah, that's why with these books I work so hard on them because I want to give people the truth. I want to give them the
Right.
true facts. Nothing made up, nothing like that. But when it comes to writing fiction I think is fun. Because
Mhm.
you're your own world, you're creating characters, you can do anything you want with them. You can make bad things happen to good people in these stories, which so yeah, it's fun. I like playing, or it's like playing. It is fun.
Yeah, it really is, and I think you're still representing the truth, but I think it's more your own truth, how you see the world, and then interpreting that through whatever nuances or metaphors or, characterizations that you put into the story too. So I think you're still getting the truth, but at least you don't have to if you muck it up, I suppose it's easier to recall your own truths or something, or if it comes across entertaining, then that's okay too. Whereas, yeah, yeah, I agree with what you're saying with the nonfiction stuff. There's that pressure of you want to get it right, not just for you and for the audience, but the people, whose truth it belongs to as well. You don't want to screw that up and put, how many times do you see that where, you have an interviewer or reporter, for example, that come out and they'll represent somebody, then that person might say, I never said that, or I never said it that way. And then,
Yeah.
it's the last thing, at least for me, and I think for you too, it's the last thing that we want to do is get somebody's, get the facts wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I just wanna say one thing. With the interviews in this book, I it is quote word for word of what they say. There is nothing added, there's nothing taken away. What they told me is what's in there, and, I think that is like, "Right from the horse's mouth," as the phrase goes. So, when people read these books, and especially the new one, and they see what they say, or read what they say, um, yeah, that's their answer. That's good or bad or pretty or ugly. What their answer is to whatever question, that right from them. So
Awesome. And I but wouldn't expect anything different from you as well. So I know that you're, man of integrity. I wouldn't expect it to be anything else but the way it's supposed to be laid out.
yeah.
So I guess as we kind of steer the conversation towards the landing zone, uh, one of the things I think that anybody that's very fascinated and very curious about certainly the world of Stephen King and how else it could be interpreted and how that maybe don't have as much experience with the Dollar Babies, me being one of them. I've yet to see some of the Dollar Baby films, so I'm really hoping that there can be a festival around me, or maybe another online festival that I can get a chance to check out. I don't even have to leave the comfort of my own, you know, cold Canada part of the world here. But maybe in particular for those that have seen the festivals that think they know everything that they need to know about the Dollar Baby films, what do you think that they're going to be most surprised about when they read through this book? No matter where they pick it up, if they pick it up in the middle, whatever section, start at the front to back, what are they gonna take away from them? They might be like, "Wow, I never would have expected to get that from this book."
I'm actually glad you pointed that out because I was going to say to you, usually when you read, fiction or you read certain books, nonfiction, you have to go from page one straight to the end of the book, straight through. This
Mm,
one, you can actually literally pick this up and flip to any page and start reading. You don't have to start necessarily at the beginning if you don't want to. That's what I love about this. You can
mhm.
literally flip through it and go, okay, I'm going to read this interview today, or I'm going to read that essay today, or I'm going to read what that film review was, or whatever. And that's why I really enjoy this book so much, is that you can do that. You can just pick anything at any time, and then start.
Yeah.
um what I want people to take from these books, I want them to know what it's like to how do I put this? um I want to I'm bringing the dollar babies to them. I'm giving them everything I've got, all the love, the passion, the sweat and tears, everything I had, I put into both of these books, and I just say, here, just read this, and I promise you, you're going to learn and see a side of Stephen King universe you never heard of before. Because that's the main thing I hear from people all the time. What's a doll baby? I never heard of that before, and that's why I always tell them, read the book, you'll find out. And next thing you know, like when people read the first book, they came and they were done with it. They came up to me and they're like, I learned so much, and I didn't know this. And the main reaction I got was there were short stories that they had not read before of King's works, but because there was a Dollar Baby movie made of that, they went back and they found that short story and read it for the first time.
How cool is
So
that?
so they thanked me for that. There was someone who came to me and said, "I never read Survivor Type. I never heard that story, but when I read about the movie in your book, I went and found that in Skeleton Crew and I read it, and it's scary as hell." You know?
Okay.
So that I heard that reaction actually quite a lot, and that is the reward. That's the reward to me. That's what makes me like I did my job. I did what I wanted to do because now that person just read that story for the first time. They got scared, and now they found a favorite short story, and now they can talk about that.
That is so cool. So it's like you have them discover this brand new world that they are probably mostly unaware of, which opens up another whole brand new world of Stephen King as well. So it's like a world within a world.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know about you, Rick, but whenever you see someone watch a movie or read a book for the first time, and you've already taken that journey, you've already seen that movie or you already read that
Yeah,
book, but to see it for the first time through their eyes and
yeah.
see their reaction, it's a wonderful feeling. I mean, I'm sure your kids, if they saw, let's say, Home Alone for the first time,
Mhm.
or something like that, or Goonies or something. You watch that movie for the first time. We know how we felt when we saw that movie when it
Yeah.
came out. We were wide eyes looking at the big screen.
The Goonies was huge for me.
Yeah. So to see if your kid watching that movie for the first time, you're just as excited as they are because
Yeah.
that's the exact feeling I get when people read these books or say, I just read, whatever short story for the first time because you talked about it in this book. It's like a domino effect. I don't
Right.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Uh, Question for you then too. So regarding all this as well, I know you mentioned, Rich Gismar, who also is part of this book. Um, Not to pin things on him, but we know that he's very good friends with Stephen King. He's written some books with Stephen King. Between maybe Rich and all the other connections that you have, to your awareness, is a Dollar Baby book going to somehow end up at the King residence?
I hope so. I mailed a copy of the first book to him or to an address who I was told was to him.
Okay.
And I never heard anything back, so I just assumed either he never got it or it's got lost in the mail or maybe got stuck in the fan mail on his desk somewhere. He never got to it. But then I found out later on, someone told me yes, he did get it,
Oh,
and
good.
that's as long as I know he got it, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you should bring this up. Is he gonna get the second book? I would like for him to have it. I think that he needs to know that there are people still talking about this program, and there's 2 books about it, and that people really care about this program above and beyond what he started. I don't think he knows just how big it got. I mean, I think he knows to a certain degree, and
Yeah.
he did promote our festival, the Stephen King Rose Festival in 2021, but um I don't know. I don't. It would be nice for him to see how it affected so many lives, so many filmmakers and actors and casting crew. These people that went out there and they scraped up their savings to go make a movie based on his story. I don't think he knows what those people went through to make that happen. If he reads these 2 books, he will.
Exactly. And him to do it, like you mentioned, all the films that are gonna be coming out next year based on his work, maybe that'll put him more in the zone as well, and he'll wanna sort of maybe retrace back to the beginning of some of these filmmakers' careers and realize, "Oh, yeah, Dollar Babies, and hey, isn't this I think this Anthony guy has, I remember he has a book." Like, actually gonna be
I,
read through that and relive some of the,
I,
the
I
up and
would
coming.
love to. I would love to. That would be my ultimate. That it still is my number one bucket list is to have an hour and a half of his time to talk about his works, to talk about Dollar Babies, and just let him know how much it's affected so many people. And that's my number one bucket list. That's all I ever would want in life is just to have an hour and a half of his time, because he affected me when I was 9 years old. I was 9 years old when I first discovered who he was, and look how it's changed my life. And
Right.
so, yeah. One other quick thing I wanted to mention to you, Rick, was some of these short stories. People say, "Oh, there's only dollar baby versions of these films." But what I'm excited about is the monkey from is coming out in February of next
Yeah.
year in the movie theater, and I'm really excited because I s- the monkey dollar baby is in this book by Spencer Sherry. It is the scariest dollar baby I've ever seen. I am not kidding. It is scary. He did a fantastic job. And to see a full version being made by a big studio and Osgood Perkins, who is Anthony Perkins' son, I met him 35 years ago, actually, believe it or not. Um, and it's gonna be really interesting to see the Stephen King story that's only like 10 pages, and I think it's like 10 pages in the book, and he's gonna make an hour and a half movie out of this, you know? Spencer's version, Dollar Baby version, I think it's like 45 minutes to an hour long. So he was able to take those 10, 15 pages and drag it out that long. So I can only imagine how the theater is gonna be an hour and a half long.
And I'm trying to think too, Monkey, what collection is that from? I know, but that's from is that from Skeleton Crew?
Synchro.
Man, it's funny. I didn't just telling you too that that was like one of my favorite collections, and I don't remember that. I'm going to read that. It's been a long time. I mean, it's probably see it's right behind me there. Yeah, right over there by my yeah, right there.
It is,
Um,
I'm gonna tell you right here and now, like I said, that's why I just when I write we didn't touch on this either, but the review part in this book, when I review the films, I don't wanna give any spoilers away in that review, and I don't, but I give it, like, the next best thing that you actually saw it. I let you know what it feels like, what it tastes like, how it scared me, or if it didn't scare me, made me cry. I really give you the as much as I can without spoiling it. So when you read the review, you almost feel like you saw the movie. You
oh,
know,
that's great. And do you do that for every movie that you mentioned in this book?
every one of them. And and a lot of people say, "Well, which one's your favorite?" I will never, ever, ever say what's my favorite because they are
Of
all my
course.
favorites. They all are. There's some that are, you know, uh, so amazing that you just can't believe that someone did this on a $700 budget. And then there's some that have tens of $1,000 budget, and they were good films too. It's all about the vision that the filmmaker had and the passion they had, and you see that in their work and in the film.
Yeah, that'd be tough. It's like asking somebody who's got $1,000,000, which dollar is your favorite out of all of them?
I can't
It's like
I will never
what's
say which one.
nothing altogether.
I mean, there is a couple, but I mean, I can't do that because I give
Yeah.
everyone credit. These people went out there and they took their vision and they put it to work, and they made it happen, and that's why everybody's film is the best film as far as I'm concerned.
And how many Dollar Baby films are covered in this book, in the sequel?
There are oh boy. Uh, well, there was 55 of them in the first book.
Yep.
This one, I think there's like 35 or 40. But see, the thing is that even though I cover 35 or 40 of them with interviews and reviews, but I also interview the cast and crew members. So that if you put that with that, um, I've seen 90 altogether between the two books, but I've seen a few at the film festivals, but they're not in either one of these. So I've seen over 100 of Dollar Babies altogether, um, but I have 90 of
Well, so you got a few left over for the encore.
them.
That's smart.
Yeah,
Very strategic of you.
the encore, yeah, I don't like I said, I don't wanna give too much away about that, but it's gonna be, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's not gonna be nearly as long, but I'm also calling it a companion because I'm gonna do something in this one that's never been done before, uh, and it's something someone asked for or suggested to me, and they said, "Hey, I think that would be a cool idea," and I thought, "Yeah, that's a cool idea, okay." I won't spoil it, but, yeah. I think between the 3 books, when it's all said and done, if they're all finished, the 3rd one's finished, I think that pretty much will cover everything you'll need to know.
Other than going out and actually making one yourself, right?
I wish I could. A lot of people ask me that, like, would you
Yeah.
before the program ended, they say, "Hey, we ever make one?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a filmmaker." But then I thought about it, I thought, "You know what? I think I would want to. I'd wanna be like a consultant or an assistant to the director or something like that." But there's a couple of King stories I would have liked to have seen made, and do something with it. But yeah.
Yeah. But now it is what it is. It's done now. So that would have ended about a year ago, I think. So if we're gonna see any more new Dollar Baby films, they would have when would they have to be fit like, I guess
Well,
it's
the contract ended on December 1st, which was when the program ended. So if a filmmaker had their contract signed and turned in by December 1st, then they can have spent all of 2024 to make that movie and put it out. So this December, there no more movies can be made past that point. That's what I was told.
gotcha.
If it's changed, I don't know, but that's what I was told. So even if you're still filming, you can still film a movie past December 1st this year. You just can't. There's no new ones being done.
Right. Okay.
You're not gonna if you're in the middle of filming on November 30th and you're not done making your movie yet, they're not gonna pull the plug or nothing.
That would suck.
Yeah, that was. But there's not a lot of them that got that contract signed in time, which was really sad. There were people like, you know, they were in the process, but they didn't get the contract to King in time. So those people didn't get their movies made, and that's really sad. But
Yeah, that'd be an interesting follow-up for the encore to see, well, what do they do with that material now? Do they just scrap it, move on, or are they gonna do something different and change a few enough points where it doesn't resemble as, as obviously a Stephen King story or what would they
I
be?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But it's the whole process, Rick, is just really amazing. It really is because you look how the big studios make the big blockbusters. The Marvel movies, the Star Wars movies, all that. They're in the millions of dollar budgets and they've got everything handed to them as far as equipment and effects and technology go. So when you're a filmmaker who make these dollar baby movies, you're on your own. You've got to get your own crew, your own cast, your own lighting, sound. You've got to get the sunlight before it goes down, and you've got to go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
So that's another reason why I respect these filmmakers so much, and why I did these books is the respect that I have.
And you can't make money doing it. So it's like,
No,
how much money are you gonna invest into it? There's gotta be it's a limit.
yeah, exactly. They don't get any money out of it. They don't make dime one. They put in money to make them, yes, but they don't get anything back. What they get back is something that doesn't have a price tag. They get back the satisfaction of putting their fandom on screen. That to
Yeah.
say to be part of the Stephen King universe, which is a very big universe, between books and movies and comics and everything else.
Massive.
To be to say I am part of that as a dollar baby in my movies and Stephen King history books, you know, that's their reward. Seeing the audience applaud and clap and stand up and cry, that's their reward. And there are actual awards to these films. Max Plaska, who did Last Long on the Ladder, his film is winning awards all over the place. And so is The Woman in the Room from Nick Petros. These people are entering in film festivals and they're winning. And that is, you know, an amazing, wonderful thing to see.
Now, do you know if any other film festivals are being in the works or not?
I don't know officially. I know there's a lot of talk. I know there's one being planned for 2026. Um, but as far as anything else than that, it's just a lot of talk. It's a big, big process, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of manpower to put these things together. You can't just whip them up like that.
No, it's not a
Um,
lot of money on
I
the
would,
organization.
yeah, and but I'm gonna put it out there. If anyone has one and you want me to be there, give me a call.
All right, so if anyone's out there and they've got the means and the resources for a festival, give Anthony a call and let me know when it's gonna be.
Exactly.
Mm.
So, but yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just gonna say this has just been an incredible, conversation. I've been excited to have this conversation with you ever since you told me that it's done, and then when you got the book in your hand, this box, these beautiful babies, I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait to talk to you about your babies."
I know. There's a few people that were like back in my head that as soon as this book was over, it's like they're getting the first call. They're going to be the first one to say no, it's done. You were one of them. There's a few others that
Thank you.
were like you're getting first info, you know. But
Well, I think my cat's a Dollar Baby fan because she's never. I just can't get rid of her.
put her in the cemetery.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a quick plug, really quick. The first book, Stephen King Dollar Baby, the book, and whoa, edit that part out. Okay, here we go. Okay, book and Stephen King Dollar Baby the sequel. You can get both of these at Bear Manor Media Publishing website. If you want to go to Amazon and grab it and get it quicker, you can do that too.
I'll put the link down below.
What's up?
I'll put the link down below as well. So we can
Okay.
let-
And they are great books. They are for every Stephen King fan, any fan who wants to know how movies are made. And not only that, it's Christmas time, makes great holiday gifts. So grab it quick so you can have it under the tree and make somebody happy on Christmas morning.
extremely happy. They're gonna think they got like some kind of a truck or something.
Yeah, you gotta just back the truck up to the door. And there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, although that this thing down. So
Pick up Macabre Horror Anthology also for the horror fan book reader on your shopping list for this Christmas. That's a great short story collection. You're gonna love my story in it, limited edition. But there's also some great, which by the way, Rick, I forgot to mention this. There is Dollar Baby short story in that horror in the Macabre Horror Anthology. Billy Hansen, who directed Survivor Type, his story is anthology, and it's really good and it's really scary. So he's in there. There's a story by Stephen Spignesi, who is the
Yeah.
King Daddy of Stephen King knowledge. We all know he wrote more books about King than anyone. So he has a story in there. Andrew Rouse is in it. There's a lot of great talent in there in that anthology. So pick that up too also.
cool. Well, please send me the link to that as well, Anthony, and I'll make sure that I put all that down below too, so everybody's got all the resources they need to get all this good stuff.
Yeah. And just a last word to your listeners. I just want to say thanks to Rick for having me. I love talking about King. I can talk about King all day long, and it's always I was enjoying visiting with you. You're a great guy, and I hope your listeners enjoyed the show. And also, you can't grab a camera and make a Dollar Baby anymore, but that doesn't mean you can't learn about it. And reading these books will take care of that. And if there's any word on festivals, Rick will be the first to know.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Anthony, man. I really appreciate it. Always a pleasure. And hopefully we'll have to wait another 2 years to talk about the next Dollar Baby book.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I'm actually kind of hoping I get it done, sooner than 2026 because it's
Sure.
not going to be as big. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll be here again for the third one.
Perfect. I appreciate it, man. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait. And everybody watching this, please do definitely hit the subscribe button as well. So that way, when Anthony does come back for the encore, you'll be able to get, first dibs on that conversation. And in the meantime, click some links down below that I've got down there for you guys too. Get all the Dollar Baby books and enjoy. And hopefully that'll keep you guys satiated until the next one comes out.
I appreciate it very much, and thanks, Rick, and happy holidays too. By the way,
Absolutely. Happy holidays. All right. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.